Hello, I'm Ian from Emotion Systems. This video is a quick guide to what the settings mean in our F product. So I go up to the settings button, click that. Let's just scroll to the top and we'll start with measurement. So what are we going to measure here? So at the top left we can say, are we going to do a loudness measurement? And we could, if we wish, turn loudness off and do a ppm only measurement for legacy type measurements. So that's what that does. Once we've selected loudness, over on the right we have a drop down with access to the different worldwide standards for loudness. The units are entered automatically, so because I've selected A85 we're going to measure in LKFS. If I'd selected R128 as used in Europe, the units would change to LUFS because that matches the standard. What is a program loudness value? So program loudness is an average value measured for the entire duration of a file, and we're saying that the target for program loudness is -24. By the word target we mean the program loudness cannot be higher or lower. So -24, the threshold we've got is 2. The threshold is used to determine whether we need to make a correction or not. So if you want your loudness to be exactly 24.0, you can set the threshold to be 0, and we will always adjust the file to be precise. Or if you say, well, it's within tolerance, then you don't need to adjust it, then you can do that by putting in the tolerance of 2. The next two features are very important, so we need to apply gating for a proper A85 style program loudness measurement. But the A85 and the CALM Act recommend the use of Dialog Intelligence, certainly for long form. I think it's considered optional for short form. For long form, then really you do need to use this. The speech threshold here is set at 20%, which is our default value and is what was recommended by Dolby. However, we find there's quite a wide variation in what different clients require, and you do of course need to adjust this to suit your client's specification. So what the speech threshold does, we use Dolby's Dialog Intelligence algorithm, and it measures how much of the content is spoken dialogue, and it creates a percentage. If the percentage it measures is more than the speech threshold, then the correction is done using Dolby's speech gating method. If the amount of dialogue we measure is less, so if we only measure 10%, then it reverts to a standard level gated measurement. So other measurements that you may need, there's a loudness range measurement, which I don't think is widely used in America. It's used in Brazil in particular. And this is a way of measuring something similar to the dynamic range. And the other measurement that's associated with the USA A85 style measurement is true peak. So the true peak is set, and the typical requirement is a maximum of -2. True peak is a threshold, so it cannot exceed -2, but it can be lower than -2, and that would be fine. If we go to the correction settings, what are we going to correct in the file? So we have a choice. We can correct the program loudness, and that would be a requirement for any loudness type application, and we need to correct the true peak. If we were doing other measurements, the short-term loudness measurement, for example, is enabled as part of an R128 European loudness measurement. And if we were measuring to R128, then you would have the option to measure and correct the short-term loudness if required. Detect and ignore tone is a very useful thing. This analyzes the file looking for a bars and tone region at the start of the file. This also works with audio-only files, so if it's just tone, that's fine. But what it does is it measures the tone, and if it detects one, it will firstly report it, tell you the frequency and so on of the tone, and it starts analysis and correction after the tone period has ended. If you don't wish to use this, you can define your own measurement window, where you say the start time in the file is 50 seconds, 30 seconds into the file, let's say. Or you may say, well, my file is always supposed to start at 10 hours, and so you could do it with a timecode value. So a typical file would start at 9:58 with the bars and tone, and then at exactly 10 hours the content starts, and this setting would start the measurement and correction from exactly 10 hours. So your choice. Channel layouts. So we support up to 16 channel files in F. We have two columns of information. The first column on the left is what channel layout we're going to apply when we analyze the file. So if we find the file has 6 channels, we are going to, by default, assume that those 6 channels are a 5.1 grouping. It could be that those 6 channels are something different, in which case you would have to go into your workflow profile and change these settings. So if the 6 channels is 3 stereo pairs, you have to say to F that that's the case, so that it can apply the appropriate channel weighting when it does the measurements. And on the right-hand column we have active channels. So the active channels are the channels that we're going to analyze and correct. And so you can say, I only want to do some of these. So I want to measure the stereo on 1 and 2. I don't care about the stereo on 3 and 4 because that's an M and E perhaps. And the stereo, the third stereo, which is on channels 5 and 6, is another language, so that must be measured and corrected as well. So those are all the settings. The 8-channel plus settings is for larger files, so you can see that, for example, a 16-channel file, we have the same kinds of options. 16 channels could be a 5.1 plus a 5.1 plus a stereo plus a stereo. And this indicates the order, so this means that channels 1 to 6 is the first 5.1, channels 7 and so on upwards is the second 5.1, and then the 2 stereos follow in that order. The advanced settings we don't recommend you use. They're for very specific purposes where you're using a stereo pair to carry 2 mono language tracks. Unless you actually need that functionality, make sure your settings stay the same as on this screen here now. If you need to use them, please contact us for advice. And if you want to save your new settings, type in a name and click Save, and you're done. Well, I hope this information has been useful. Please contact us at Emotion Systems if you need any help. Thank you for watching.